governments pay you money to see the clouds?
Can confirm. The government is deliberately modifying the weather.
Wow.
Yes. Yep.
Over the last few weeks, a number of viewers have asked me to talk about a company called Stardust Solutions, an Israeli-based geoengineering company operating right here in the United States. And at the same time, we're seeing companies like Rainmaker expanding cloud seeding operations and openly discussing terraforming the American Southwest. All right, guys, today we're going to take a look at what's being proposed, who's behind it, and how it impacts you and I. Let's get right into it. A company called Stardust Solutions has recently entered a growing field of solar geoengineering. Based on available information, the company is an Israel-based startup operating in the United States and currently developing technology designed to reflect sunlight back into space. The company reportedly raised more than $60 million in funding in late 2025 and is backed by a lower carbon capital with leadership that includes former Israeli government physicists. And their stated goal is to block out the sun. According to material published on their website and summarized in various reports, Stardust is developing what they describe as a full stack of solar radiation management systems. The components they describe include engineering particles designed to reflect sunlight, high-altitude deployment systems using modified aircraft, real-time atmospheric monitoring to track system performance. The company claims the system would be safe, measurable, adjustable, and fully reversible, and states that their particles are made from naturally occurring human-safe materials. In their frequently asked question section, the company also addresses what happens when those particles eventually fall back to Earth. Their explanation states that the materials recycle back into natural processes to serve as structural materials for living creatures. The language matters. One of the most important things to pay attention to in this early stage is the specific language the company is using. Terms appearing repeatedly in materials include minute amounts of sunlight, human-safe materials, fully reversible, recycle back into natural processes, full stack solution. This is a carefully constructed message. When a company describes a full stack system, it typically means that they are designing the entire operational chain, manufacturing the particles, delivering them into the upper atmosphere, monitoring atmospheric conditions in real time, and adjusting deployment as they see fit. In other words, this is simply not a research concept, it's a proposed operational atmospheric management system. At this stage, the available information raises several questions that deserve closer examination as more details emerge. For example, what specific materials are being used in those particles? Natural can describe many different substances, and the environmental behavior of aerosolized particles depends heavily on their chemistry and size. What aircraft platforms are being used for high-altitude deployment? Are these modified commercial aircraft, purpose-built high-altitude systems, or something else? Where would testing or deployment take place? Over oceans, remote regions, or within shared airspace? Before moving further, it's important to separate two varied types of technology. The system proposed by Stardust Solutions falls into the category known as Solar Radiation Management, SRM. These proposals involve releasing reflective particles high in the stratosphere, potentially around 60 to 70,000 feet, where they can scatter a portion of incoming sunlight before it ever reaches us. The objective is not rainfall. The objective is changing how much solar energy enters the Earth system itself. That makes solar radiation modification a planet-scale intervention operating at the very top of the weather system. All right, now let's talk about cloud seeding, because cloud seeding operates much lower in the atmosphere. Traditional cloud seeding aircraft fly directly into existing storm systems, releasing nucleating agents, typically silver iodide, to encourage supercooled water droplets to freeze and fall as precipitation. Different altitude, different physics, different consequences. One modifies the storms, the other influences the planet's radiation balance. Understanding that distinction matters, because while solar radiation management is being deployed way overhead, weather modification at the cloud level is already happening. One of the companies currently operating in that space is Rainmaker, founded by Augustus Dorico. Dorico has publicly stated in interviews that his company works with government partners on cloud seeding operations designed to increase rainfall. Cloud seeding itself is not new. Governments have experimented with this technology since at least the 1940s, and these programs have been operating in the United States, China, the Middle East, and elsewhere. What's different now is the technology sector entering the field as venture-funded startups, and Dorico's vision goes well beyond small agricultural experiments. In interviews, Augustus Dorico has spoken about his ambitions of transforming large portions of the American Southwest, increasing rainfall enough to convert desert regions into productive farmland.
One of Rainmaker's most controversial takes. We're a terraforming company. Like, my magnum opus is extending the Great Plains through West Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, into California, making all of that land green and arable. That will have climatological consequences.
This is not a minor weather modification program. That is regional environmental engineering. And anyone who studies atmospheric circulation understands a simple reality. Moisture that falls in one place often means moisture that does not travel somewhere else. Weather systems are interconnected. Changing one region can ripple across the entire planet. Another piece of this story is where Dorico comes from. He is a Peter Thiel Fellow. The Thiel Fellowship is funded by billionaire investor Peter Thiel, who co-founded Palantir Technologies. Palantir is not a typical Silicon Valley startup. Its software platforms are deeply embedded into military, intelligence, and law enforcement systems, where they are used to analyze massive data sets and generate predictive models used by defense agencies and government institutions. The company's technology has been used for military intelligence analysis, surveillance data integration, predictive policing systems, immigration enforcement databases. In other words, Palantir sits at the intersection of technology, intelligence, and state power. The Thiel Fellowship was created with a specific philosophy: identify young founders early, fund them directly, and accelerate disruptive companies outside traditional academic paths. That ecosystem has produced startups in everything from artificial intelligence to biotechnology. Rainmaker emerged from that same network. Peter Thiel himself has been a controversial figure. His company Palantir became a major surveillance and analytical contractor for government agencies. He has made public statements questioning whether freedom and democracy are compatible, a view critics interpret as support for technocratic governance. And financial ties between Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein's earlier conviction have also drawn media attention. Peter Thiel sits at the center of a network where venture capital, national security technology, and political influence intersect. Taken together, the emergence of companies like Stardust Solutions and Rainmaker reveals something significant. Different technologies are now being developed to intervene in the atmosphere at multiple levels, inside storm systems, across regional weather patterns, and potentially across the planet's radiation balance itself. Each of these operates differently, but they all share the same underlying assumption: The atmosphere is no longer just something to observe, it's increasingly being treated as something to be engineered. And once that mindset takes hold, the question is no longer whether the technology exists. The real question becomes, is it already implemented? Who decides when it gets used, and how far does it go? We have heard from solar geoengineers themselves, and they have stated publicly that these programs will kill many tens of thousands of people annually. For years, we have watched the white lines over our heads. We see the sunlight reduced and a film covering the entire sky that resembles a metallic haze. And life on the ground, we see the loss of forests, birds, bees, and insects. They'll tell us that this is all part of the natural cycle. They tell us what we see in the sky is just ice crystals, and at the same time, they talk to us about their programs. The story is much bigger, and it runs deeper, and what we covered today is only the beginning of a much bigger investigation. So leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'd like to thank the supporters of this work. You make these videos possible. I like buttery popcorn and young at heart. Much love and many thanks. Okay, Sky Watchers, stay aware, be prepared, and until next time, keep looking up.